Hey y'all, I'm Val with Our Forever Farm. I'm getting ready to make pie crust. I'm gonna make 6 or 8 pie crusts just to put in the freezer so I'll have them. These are really good. These are really easy. I used to make pie crust in a really hard way until a friend shared with me how she did it, and it's really easy. So what I'm doing is preparing everything because you want everything to be really cold. I have saw different ways to do this. She said to prepare everything ahead of time. So what we're gonna need is ice water. I've got that sitting right now. I've got all-purpose flour, and luckily my canister was out, and so I went to the freezer to get more. So it's cold too. So anytime you can have everything cold, and if you're not quite ready to do it all, like the butter, you need to go ahead and cube it and set it back in the freezer if you're afraid it's gonna get warm, you know. So I'm gonna put mine in a bowl and I'm gonna set it right back in there. You don't wanna handle everything too much because your hands are warm. So just to give you a heads up on what we need 16 tablespoons of butter cubed, just like that. And I'm setting it back in the freezer right now. So it looks like kind of a mess out here, but I've got everything ready to go. I've got my flour, I've got my sugar, I've got my salt, my ice water, and my butter is in the refrigerator. I didn't have room in the freezer. So let's see if this is a 1 cup measurement. It is.
Just in case I didn't say, we're using a food processor today to make these pie crusts. It just makes it so simple. And I have a Ninja food processor, but you can use whatever kind of food processor you have. The first thing we're adding is 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. So when I make these pie crusts, I like to fluff up my flour and then take a knife and just level it off in the measuring cup. Next, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. And that little measuring spoon, it is 2 tablespoons. Next, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Next, we're just going to put the lid on, and we're just going to mix this up. And you can just use your pulse button and just mash it for a few seconds, and it'll be all mixed up. It's the sugar, the flour, and the salt. And next, we're going to add our butter. So remember, it's 16 tablespoons of butter, which is 2 sticks, and we cubed them. Now we're going to put our lid on our processor, and we're going to use the pulse button one more time, but we're going to do it like 10 or 12 times at 1 second intervals. Now what we're looking for is a crumbly mixture. We want to see those little bits of butter. Now we're going to be adding our liquid. Remember, I've got my ice water sitting there, and I'm measuring out 1/2 cup of ice water, and I strained the ice. And then in a little measuring cup, I strained enough for 2 tablespoons. So I'm going to use 1/2 cup of ice water plus 2 tablespoons. And you think that won't make a difference, but it does. So now we're just going to pour our cold ice water into the mixture. No ice, just the water. And we're going to pulse it again several times, maybe 10, 12, maybe even 13 pulses. You'll figure it out. So what I'm looking for is I don't want any clumps of flour on the bottom. I want to make sure all this flour, butter, and water is mixed together well. And then I want to take the blade out, and I want to just set it aside and get all that goodness off of it. And then what I want to do is I want to take my hand and just get some of the mixture, some of the pie crust in my hand and squeeze it together. If it squeezes together and stays together, it's ready. So the lady that shared this with me, she told me let the food processor do the work. Do not be working this with your hands because it'll warm up the mixture. So all I'm doing here is I'm taking half of this mixture and I'm putting it in some Saran Wrap, and I'm just going to wrap it up. You can wrap it up any way you want, and then you're going to make a disc with it. You're not going to be making, like, kneading it or anything like that, or mixing it with your hands. You're going to just make a disc with it inside the Saran Wrap. And then I double wrap it for the freezer because I'll be using it really soon. And I'm just going to, you'll see how I do. I take my hands and I just twirl that around, and then I mash it. I just mash it all together where it's sticking together. And then I make a disc. And that's how easy it is to get it ready for the freezer. This recipe makes 2 pie crust. Now, I'm sure somebody's going to ask me, can you double this? Well, doing it in the food processor, it's kind of hard to double it because my food processor will only hold so much. If you have a bigger food processor, maybe you could. I don't know. Now, you can see I'm doing the same thing again. You're going to think this looks like crumbs, but I'm telling you, if you did it with your hand and it stuck together and you got down in there pretty good to make sure it got all of it, this is going to work. It's going to be great. It's going to make the best pie crust you ever ate because it's just full of butter. And you can actually see the butter. I don't know if y'all can see it on here when I show you the disc, but you can actually see the butter in it, the bits of butter. But don't think because it's crumbs that it's not going to work. Even sometimes when I get a disc out of the freezer, after it's thawed, sometimes it's crumbly, but I just put it back together.
So these are ready to go in the freezer. Easy peasy. Let's do it again. Whoops. 5, 6, 7, 8. They're all going in the freezer.
So when you freeze your pie crust and you want to thaw one out to make a pie, you want to either put it in the refrigerator the night before or the day before. It doesn't matter, but you want to put it in the refrigerator and let it thaw out there. This pie crust actually wasn't frozen, but it got really, really cold in the refrigerator. I put it in the freezer for about an hour and then put it in the refrigerator just so I could show you how easy it is to make a pie crust. And then what I'm going to do, because this dough has not been frozen, it's just been in there a little while, I'm going to make the pie crust, and I'm going to freeze my pie crust in the plate where I can just pop it out and make a pie when I want to. And I'm actually going to do that, and we may do that on one of the next few videos, and I'll show you how I make a pie in my pie crust. Now here it's when you first get it out, especially if it's been frozen and it's really cold, it's going to be hard to start out. Don't give up. You'll see all those bits of butter in there, and you just want to roll it and roll it from the center out, rotating, keeping flour underneath, but not adding flour to the pie crust. It's so cold it shouldn't add any. And then we'll put it in the pie plate and fix it and get it ready for the pie. And then in the next few days, I'll just stick this in the freezer, and the next few days I'll make a pie, and I'll bring you right along with me to show you. So when I get in the mood to make pie crust, I don't just make 1 or 2. I usually make 8 or 10. I've even made a dozen before just to have them in the freezer where I can pop them out, and it makes it so easy. It amazes me that we buy pie shells, and it is so convenient to do that, but they're just so much fun and so delicious to make, and it's just a great skill. And here at Christmas, that's why I want pie shells in my freezer. I want to be able to just pull one out and make a quick pie, either for a gift or for a party. There's so many unique ways you can make the edging on a pie, or you don't have to do anything at all. You can just leave it plain, or you can use a fork or a spoon. There's all kinds of different fun ways. It's just fun being creative and making pie shells in your kitchen.
So there's just a simple pie crust. I'm gonna set this in the freezer and we'll make a pie with it on the next video maybe. Isn't that pretty? Simple, very easy to make, nothing fancy. Anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Thank y'all for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Y'all go cook something.